Welcome to the COSB 360 Conversations podcast, the platform for county influencers. This is a new platform being launched by County HR's Organizational and Talent Development Division to engage with our leaders and keep our workforce informed. This is also one way that we can share the efforts of departmental staff and what it takes from a leadership perspective to keep the wheels turning in our organization. This podcast is being co-hosted by June Mighty and Dr. Leonie Mattison.
Well, thank you and welcome to our 360, the COSB 360 Conversations podcast. Thanks for, really taking the time to join us. I know that this is a hectic time for you and your department. And I know that because I've had some conversations with some of your employees. So I know things are you guys are burning rubber, so to speak. So thank you for building in some time to have this conversation with us. And as we've talked before, it's like, I know that your focus here is to really talk about your department, right? And so as we go into this conversation, talking about navigating crisis, you and your department, you're not strangers to crisis. The pandemic is just one other dimension of a series of crises that you guys have navigated. When I think about the fire, even when I think about the mudslide, those are things that your department's always at the forefront. And so what I want to know, even in line with some of your department values in terms of building a supportive, collaborative culture, the alignment, the pride, how do you and your team, what do you do to sustain your team through crisis, and how do you guys navigate this? Tell us a little bit about this from you and your department's perspective.
Well, June and Leonie, first of all, thank you for having me this morning. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of share some of our thoughts from a public works perspective. Certainly the COVID-19 pandemic, an emergency across the world. And I appreciate your comments about, public works has experience with emergencies, but, and as you mentioned, floods, debris flows, things like that, we take kind of a primary role in those situations. And I think what's different about the COVID-19 event is it's really an invisible threat, right? So, what we're dealing with now globally is the unknown, right? So we have a flood, our flood control basins fill up, we get materials on the street, we have to go, we have slides, we lose roads. We can go out to a site and say, okay, the road needs to be repaired, we need to clean out the basin, we need to do this, we need to do that. But under COVID-19, we don't really know who's going to be impacted by that. Yet at the same time, we have a mission to fulfill in public works, and we have to provide essential public services to the community because, people put their trash cans out, they expect to come home at the end of the day. If they're still working, that those trash cans will be empty, right? So that's what they care about. And if they're driving on the roads, they expect to have a safe trip, to get to their destination in a timely fashion and get home safely. If it's raining, they expect that the waters flow through the creeks and make it to the ocean, right? And they're not getting wet, they're not getting flooded. So those are the essential public services that we provide. And so throughout the pandemic, our goal is to continue providing those services, but at the same time, ensuring that our staff are safe throughout that process, and the customers that we work with are safe as well when they visit our facilities. So it's when I think about it, it's this underlying tension. It's with all of us every day because you just don't know. And as we got deeper into this emergency, we started to know more about what COVID-19 is and what exposure meant, and if you got it, what did it do to you, and then you started looking at the vulnerable communities, right? So this emergency, and as you mentioned on the flooding and debris flow, and if we're the primary department in that, then we have expertise in that, right? So, and I'm an engineer, and engineers like to control things, and they like to see a problem, and they like to go fix the problem. But this one creates a level of stress because we're not experts in this field, and we're doing everything we can to manage it and the potential impacts to our workforce and the work that we do. So So we have to deal with that every day, and we have to recognize that every single one of our team members, because this is happening everywhere, comes to work thinking about that because it's the unknown, right? So
Right.
once this event's hit, we had a lot going on in our world because we were essentially just getting through a pretty significant winter. We started to get in the debris flow areas in Montecito. Our basins were filling up again. We also had a recent fire in the foothills above the unincorporated area of Goleta, which also caused some concerns because those watersheds were burnt. So we had to go in and clear out basins, and it was, I think, the very same day that the stay-at-home order was executed by the governor, we were opening up Goleta Beach for beach deposits because we don't have a site where we can take materials. So that just kind of lined up perfectly timing-wise. When everyone was at home, it kind of allowed us to have the space that we needed to go in and clean out our flood control facilities throughout that process. So normal work, day in, day out work, whatever work comes from winters or fire season, what have you, we need to have the ability to get into these operational areas and do our work. And
so now you're mentioning,
go ahead.
so Scott, you just mentioned two things that I want to just follow up on. One, this pandemic provided an opportunity for your department to go in and do something. So even through this thing that we're not able to really put our fingers on, there was an opportunity, correct? At least that's what
Correct.
I think I'm hearing, right?
Correct. Right. And that example I gave you was on the flood control side because it gave us the space we needed to do what we needed to do to get those facilities opened up again for next winter. Now, think about, once the stay-at-home orders were put in place, people weren't driving. And, on your commutes, I'm sure you noticed that, the traffic went down by, oh boy, it seemed like 80 or 90%, So for me to get to the office every day usually takes me about a half hour. I was getting to the office in about 12 minutes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there was no one on the freeway, no one on
opportunities.
Yeah. But I noticed it's taken longer now, so more people are getting kind of back into the workforce. But so from our road maintenance perspective, we were able to get out and fill some potholes and do some much needed maintenance work at the same time because the traffic was light. And it was kind of interesting too because with these folks at home, they would come out and set out their lawn chairs on the front yard and watch our crews at work. So
wow.
So our crews had an audience through this. It was really, so the public, our customers, got to see us in action. So it was great.
And actually, you know what, that is great because a lot of times the public is not really aware of everything that your department or that the county does. So even in that respect, it was educational. So they can't say, this is your county dollars at work, literally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, so we had certainly like most of the county. I mean, we looked at positions, office type positions, and we decided which positions we could send home, and they could perform their function from their homes, and put a system together to ensure that they were adding value, right? And so I think we had, during the peak of the pandemic, which certainly is still going on, we had about 70 staff members that were working from home offices. And then we had the balance of our department from day one, about 220 employees, frontline staff, working with the public. So one of the challenges too, and this was kind of a unique one, at our transfer stations where the community can come and dispose of their waste.
Right.
We had essentially business spike because folks were at home and they saw it as kind of this long weekend. So they were cleaning garages, cleaning the backyards, and
yeah, so, one of them.
Can I interject here, Scott? Thank you.
Yes.
I'm having like little chills over here, and I'm going like, so just so you know, on yesterday and last week, I actually called the Public Works Department, and I said to them, because I am also, having to do the homeschooling with my kids, and they're eating like a horse. And I said to the person on the phone, I said, my trash, I'm spilling over on the brown can. The blue is filled up, and I'm going, I didn't plan for this. And I thought to myself, gosh, I wonder what the garbage, the folks who are having to deal with the trash collection, I wonder what they're really having to deal with now, because I was putting out twice as much as I normally would, Scott. And I just thought, I said, is there a way for us to get more trash can? And then now summer is coming. So just so you know, I am one of those residents who are, I'm having to deal with this like in real time, where it's such a change. It's a huge shift for us. Parents having our kids, we're cooking more, we're consuming more trash. So, I mean, my hat's off to you and your department, because having to deal with 10 of me, I don't know, but I'm telling you, when I called, I was like, my list was so long, because things have changed, drastically because of COVID-19. So I just want to let you know, I'm a real life story of what I'm going through, homeschooling my kids and having to deal with the excess trash.
Wow.
Well, and then, multiply that by 400,000 people in the county.
Yeah.
So, we're seeing that, the residential service has gone way up, while, businesses being closed, it's pretty much gone down to zero. So, and then think about now, you're not going out to stores to shop, you're doing a lot of online shopping, right? So we're seeing our recyclables going up, boxes, styrofoam, packing materials, things like that. So, it's kind of changed the character of our waste. But with the public health order last week from the public health department, now we're going to start seeing restaurants opening up. We're going to start seeing businesses open up. So we're going to start seeing that shift now from the stay at home exclusive order to, people going back to work, people actually going out and, getting dinner, buying lunch, buying breakfast, what have you. So we're going to start to see the character of the waste kind of go back over time to what it was prior to COVID-19. But I think, June, on your bigger question, I think I've hit on, what's different about the crisis, and, what have we kind of done to sustain ourselves to make sure that, Public Works was still fulfilling its role in the essential services category. Everything we do, in the public sector is about communication, as you know. So as we learned information, because we took guidance, since we're not experts in this field, from our county public health department, as requirements changed, we would get that out to our leadership, who in turn would get that out to their teams across the department. That when anything changed, we would send out a reminder. I'd talk to my executive leadership team. We were meeting regularly to make sure that, okay, what questions are you getting from the field? What do we need to provide? And then if we didn't have the information, we'd go to Vaughn over at Public Health and, get the information we needed. They were fabulous. It was a great two-way street, because, we're frontline staff. And, they're interacting with the public daily, and at the transfer station, like we were talking about, the line of people, and this is probably not a surprise for Leonie if she went up there, the line was down the hill past the jail and almost out to Kyriel. So, we had to kind of work with that as well, because you had, landscapers and people that were out there doing work, still trying to bring in their normal daily waste, and then we mixed in the stay-at-home people as well. And at the same time, we have two scales up there, and the two scale operators and our refuse checkers were essentially standing right next to each other. There was no way to get social distancing. So, my deputy Leslie Wells over in resource recovery did a fabulous job working with those people to kind of implement essentially all the recommendations that came from public health to get the social distancing, to reduce touch points. I mean, think about before COVID, you'd have a pen at a counter and it was maybe taped to a string, right? Because
Right.
customers come in, they have to fill out a check or sign a receipt. Everybody used the same pen. Well, COVID-19, you can't do that. You need to minimize touch points. So how do you fix that? Well, you buy a box of pens and, someone gets a pen and they get to take it with them. It says, County of Santa Barbara on it.
So Scott, so let me interject right there, because you're saying a lot of good information, but I want to interject something there. One, not focusing on you, but I have to focus on you and your department. What you're describing there is the ability to be resilient. Now, you are, former military, and so that that's something that's important. So I think what you're describing there is the ability of your department and your team to pivot and to be resilient in terms of meeting the needs, even in terms of, having the dynamics, the longer lines, thinking about the pens, all these type of things. That's kind of what I hear coming from you is that ability to be resilient and pivot.
It's kind of one of the things that's just built into our day, in public works, because things change every day. And, people say, when are we going to get back to normal? And, when I think about public works, I don't know if any day is ever normal for us. We're always kind of pivoting and adjusting to the landscape, be it funding issues, not having enough resources on the staffing end to get the job done, addressing, like an oil tanker comes down the 101 and it rolls off the 101 and lands on Jameson Lane, which is in Montecito, which is our road. We have to deal with that. It just takes all the plans you had for that day right out the window, and our team in public works is very resilient. And I think we've learned over the years, through the different disasters, dealing with normal rainfall, dealing with wildfires, whatever comes up on any given day, they realize, all right, we need to just have to go and address this issue. And, and this one, again, like I was saying, this invisible threat, since you don't really know the limits and the size of what it could do to you, we had plan B, plan C, plan D, because initially we thought we were going to lose half our workforce, right? And so we had to come up with creative ways to ensure that operations could still continue. And, ensuring that the traveling public was safe on our roads. And as I mentioned, flood control channels were open in case we had more rain, because it was kind of on the tail end of our rainy season. And, and ensuring trash gets picked up. We also operate a sewage treatment plant up in right outside the community of Orchid, up in the Santa Maria Valley. And, people are at home. So think about, Leonie, what you were mentioning on the trash, same thing. They're at home, they're using the restrooms 24 hours a day versus, going to work and using restrooms somewhere else, maybe in another city or another location. So that increased our flows to the wastewater treatment plant as well. And the wastewater treatment plant cannot stop, right? You can imagine, that work has to continue. So, we have some creative teams out there. They put together schedules that staggered the plant staff. So if COVID was to get into one of the teams, we still had one team healthy that could run the plant. So, very creative ideas. And, I don't have all the good ideas. My leaders don't have all the good ideas. And we try as an organization, top to bottom, encourage ideas. And, one of the things as the director of the department, I don't mind people making mistakes, just don't make the same mistake twice. I mean, Lord knows, as I came up in the organization, I had, great supervisors and great leaders that allowed me to learn that way. And I think it gives you the experience you need to do your job and to make this a better county.
All right. Hey, you know what? That is a great opportunity for a segue, because I know as you're talking now about your staff, this is a great opportunity, because I know Leonie has some questions that she wants to ask as well. So I'm going to pitch it over to Leonie.
All right.
Great. Thank you, June. I so appreciate hearing from your perspective, Scott, and all the wonderful, innovative, and timely things that your staff are engaged in. And so, what I'd like to know, what are some additional innovative ways your employees have ramped up to meet the needs of the community? I know we talked about, the trash situation and the wastewater. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Like today we're doing, this call on Zoom, right? In January, if you said, "Hey, let's do a Zoom meeting," I would have just looked at you and said, "What are you talking about?" Right? I mean, we have shifted the way we can work, and I think these are the types of tools that are really going to shift the way we work in the future as well, right? So, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a number of staff telecommuting. Technology such as this is going to allow those opportunities to continue in the future. I mean, I'm involved in national organizations, and we held a conference. We were supposed to be in Alabama in April to do that conference. We did our business meeting and our other meetings all by Zoom. We were able to elect officers on Zoom. I did it from the comfort of my office.
Right.
Most of the time that, the amount of travel we have to kind of do to get to a function can be, from the West Coast to get to the East Coast, it's over a day, right? For
Right.
traveling to get there and come back. Now you can do an hour meeting in an hour and still be in your office. So I think that is going to really change where we go in the future. And as I mentioned, half of our department is office staff. So that's going to help tremendously. And then we can bring field staff into it as well. I mean, to go from here to Santa Maria is an hour and 10 minutes, right, from downtown. So this flexibility is going to save all of us a bunch of time and a bunch of money, I think, long run. I think when we start getting away more from the office environment and looking more on the field side, I think a lot of the protocols that we're going to be dealing with now are going to be ingrained into our daily operations when it comes to staffing. And I think that's a good thing. I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but I think my hands are the cleanest they've ever been in my life. I'm always washing my hands. These are great reminders. We have the, but think about it. I mean, we have the cold and flu season every year. And staff they're sick. They have lost time because of it. But I think a lot of the protocols we're going through now with regard to, make sure you wash your hands, wear a face mask. Those are kind of good things to do in a cold and flu season, so you don't share those bugs. And then, an employee loses a day off from work. I think at the end of the day, that's going to help all of us reduce our lost time across the county. And then, but the one downside, I think, on the Zoom piece that I was talking about is that, nothing could take the place of personal interaction, and we're going to lose that,
Right.
I think, a little bit in the future. So we're going to have to figure that piece out, because it's important. It's extremely important. I'm an engineer. I'm more introverted than I am extroverted, but I think this position is maybe more extroverted, and I miss the face-to-face contact. I miss the meetings. So we're going to have to wrestle with that, I think, probably around the globe, right, because of this whole social distancing thing. But that's one piece I'd like to see come back.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. That's actually, thank you so much for your very thoughtful response. And it's a great segue into my next question. And I do have a comment as it relates to what are you doing to keep the staff inspired and engaged with momentum. So you discussed thoroughly about, we're having to move to a great reliance on technology, which really takes away from the face-to-face interaction. But talk to us about what are you doing to inspire your employees as you're having to deal with this new reality of really allowing technology to do a lot of what we normally will do on a day-to-day basis, face-to-face. What talk to us about that?
Sure. Well, you folks have been with the county a while. I've been with the county a while. And I think one thing we always say is, we're a county family, right? Yeah. So, and I think early on, Mona and the county and the board, you know, they came out and they granted PTL time to help people through this process. And I think that was huge, because that just reinforced the whole county family concept, right? Because, you know, as essential service providers, I mean, you're coming to work going, you know, all right, I may get sick, but I have a job to do, you know. But we came to work and we thought about our county families, what we could do here to protect ourselves from potentially catching COVID. But the flip side of that coin is at night, they're going home to a family who is, you know, under, you know, stay home lockdown orders, right? So, you know, the thing you had to think about was, you know, if I go to work and I get exposed, I don't know I'm exposed, now I've exposed my family, right? So you had to kind of deal with those potential morale issues as well. And, you know, and then kind of bifurcate out the vulnerable community piece and, you know, kind of help those people through the process. And the PTL helped people to do that, because you remember initially childcares were closed, schools were closed. Now parents who are relying on the schools and the childcare to allow them the time they need to go to work, they didn't have that available to them. So the PTL was just a great tool, I think, that the county put on the table. And that really sent a strong message, I think, to my team and the entire county team, that, you know, leadership at the county of Santa Barbara cares about their employees. And it was even extended to extra help employees, because they're part of the team as well. And I thought that was really good. So we did everything we could on the communication front to get that information out to the team, so they knew they had that option. And it really helped with certainly the parents, and it certainly, you know, helped the unfortunate people who ended up with potential COVID symptoms, and they had to kind of take time off of work until they could get beyond whatever the time frame was that was stated by the public health department on the symptoms, you know, to be asymptomatic. So I think that went a long way. And then on the engaging the staff, I think having the creative ideas with regards to, you know, varied schedules, giving them all the tools that they needed, you know, so you could kind of take the burden of, you know, am I going to catch this today, or am I going to be all right? You know, kind of off the table, maybe not off the table, but kind of move it to the side a little bit so they realized that, you know, as a department, we were doing everything in our power to ensure that they stayed healthy, because in public works, safety is a big deal, right? As you can imagine, we have some big pieces of equipment out at our landfill, and we have staff on the ground working around that. We, you know, in transportation, you're closing a lane down on a road where cars are going by you at 50 or 60 miles an hour. You know, they're making split-second decisions out there that really are life or death type situations. So, you know, we train on the safety side extremely hard, and have a fabulous safety officer, Shannon Barcelona, who was staying on top of all of these requirements. And she got out there to all of our different facilities as often as possible to answer questions, talk to staff, make sure they were using the appropriate PPEs to protect themselves. So I think it was, you know, hey folks, we're all in this thing together. We're here to get you all the tools that you need to be safe, as we always are, because of the nature of our work. And I think to some degree that helped inspire and engage the staff a little bit, that, you know, I'm going to be okay. You know, ask yourself the question every day, are you okay? Are you okay right now? Well, yeah, I'm fine. So, you know, let's keep plugging away. Let's fulfill the mission, you know. And, you know, the one big thing I like to say was, you know, I mean, the services that we do, and when I talk about public works a lot, is, you know, if people think about us, that means something's not working right. Because usually the services that we do are just kind of done behind the scenes, right? Like the trash gets picked up and, you know, safe drive to work, safe drive home. You know, people don't say, hey, public works did that. Mm-hmm. But if something happens, which is normally routine, then they go, wait, why is that broken? Right. So at the end of the day, our job was to ensure that those things people take for granted weren't broken. And, you know, I'm fortunate to have 283 full-time employees here in Public Works that just make up this awesome team that just stay focused on, you know, quality of life and keeping people safe. So.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you for that response. Thanks, Scott. Go ahead, June.
I was going to say, so we are actually nearing the end of our conversation with you, Scott. And actually, I've learned so much about you and additional information about your department. But before we sort of wrap up, is there anything, what would be your final sort of parting words that you would like the rest of the county to know about organization, about your staff? Is there anything you would like to end this session, this conversation with?
Sure. Well, June, thank you. I think, we've talked a little bit about, the potential impacts of COVID-19, I think on the individual team members, but, there's a bigger issue, and we're going to wrestle with this, again, across the country and across the world, but it's, the financial impacts to that too. So, that discussion is going to be happening with the board here shortly on the budget, and we all got kind of a preview of that at the workshops. And in our world, and we talked a little bit about it earlier, was on the lack of traffic on the road during the lockdown, right? Well, we really survive on gas taxes, and those gas taxes have dropped tremendously. So we're working real hard now to minimize those potential impacts on the type of work that we do and on our resources. So it's going to be a interesting budget season, to say the least. I think, there's a lot of projections out there now that, once the stay-at-home order, once we get through the various phases and businesses open up and people get back out into the real world, if you will, there's going to be this pent-up energy. And I agree. People are going to, because people miss going to dinner. They miss their friends. They miss, they miss doing things like that. So, so I think to some degree we will recover. And, for a few months, I'm sure we'll probably bring in more gas taxes. People are like, let's jump in the car and, let's drive to Vegas, or let's go do this, let's go do that. Right. So we'll see some of that, but we'll never truly recover the funding that we lost as we went through the COVID-19 emergency. So, we're going to do everything in our power as leadership to ensure that we can, still provide those essential services and still get the job done for, all the residents of this great county.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. And one of the things I heard from you during this conversation, Scott, and I'm reading this book, and I jotted down this note for myself. Jim Collins, in his book From Good to Great. And I'm not sure if you both are military, so I kind of feel a little bit intimidated a little bit here, but he's actually Admiral James Stockwell. He talks about the Stockdale paradox. Have you guys heard of that framework?
Well, I've heard of it. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. So Admiral James Stockdale was a prisoner.
I don't recall.
No? Okay. So he was a prisoner of war in Vietnam for 7 years, and he was asked by Jim Collins many years after to reflect on that experience. And he asked, which kinds of people didn't survive? And he said, you must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end with discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be. And that is what I'm hearing from you today, is that we're not, as a county, as a public works department, we're not ignoring the reality. We're facing them head on. We're looking at the budgetary, the economic impact. COVID-19 will go away at some point, but the impact to our economy, to our county, we still have to deal with that. And what I feel so proud of hearing from you this morning is that as an organization, our leaders are already thinking about these things, and there's conversations going on. So we're not ignoring, but I'm hearing you say we're thinking about not only our people, but how the economic impact of COVID-19, and then getting our brain powers together to figure out how do we move forward from this. And that's really heartwarming to me as a leader, as an employee, to know that our leaders are thinking about these things. So thank you so much for sharing that. I just felt like I needed to share that little tidbit with you. So I'll turn it over to June.
Thank you, Leonie. That actually really is a great quote. And so, Scott, really, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for sharing what I think a very transparent and heartfelt comments about your organization, what your organization does. And I think when I walk away from this, when I go out to the street, because there's a lot of construction going on, fixing the roads and just different things. You're right. It's like a lot of times public works is in the background, and the work is not pretty, it's not what you put out front, but absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Scott. We really appreciate you joining us on this COSB 360 conversation, and look forward to connecting with you soon. Hopefully the next time we talk, it will be face to face, real time.
Yes. And we could shake hands again.
Yes. Because we're a family, we miss that, right? We don't do well when we're not able to connect the way we normally would connect.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming, Scott. We appreciate you and all that the Public Works Department is doing. So thank you so much.
Great. Thanks. See you later.
All righty. See you later.
Thank you for listening to the interview portion of our program. Up next, we will take a deeper dive into the topics covered and also provide some news and updates.
So we're going into the section now in terms of sort of the extras, the things that we want to cover, tidbits, insight. And the quote that you just shared was really good, and I think it's a really great leadership quote, but also one that could be used for anyone, across the board, whether you're working, whether you're at home, regardless. So tell me a little bit about that. When you said it, it seemed like it really resonated with you. So give me some more insight about that.
Mm-hmm. So he talks about that there are two aspects of getting through any crisis. And I believe Montez, during Leading Through Crisis webinar, kind of touched upon it a little bit, but he was coming from the John Maxwell standpoint. But, and the thing Jim Collins pulled out of that conversation with Admiral Stockdale was that first of all, we have to recognize the most brutal facts of our current reality, right? That is, the first action is to recognize, look at it head on. In psychology, we talk about being aware and acknowledging and facing the fear, right? You see it, but face it anyway. I think this is essentially what he was saying, is that we need to recognize the most brutal facts. And some of the facts that we're having to really look at today is that, as Scott said, there is an invisible war that we're in. It's different from the fire where we see the physical demonstration and we can feel the heat and see the heat going. All right. This one we're sitting there going, do I go? It's like death breathing outside. Do I really take the risk of going out? Right. So that's why you face it head on. And to your point, and probably it's a good conversation for you and I to really engage in. When you think about leadership, right? What would be some of your pointers to our listeners, to our employees, in terms of maybe we really need to take this from a personal perspective and, ask ourselves, as Scott alluded to, what are my realities? What are some things that I really need to be conscious and be cognizant of, right? From a personal level, a professional level, maybe a financial level. Look at the whole spectrum of things. Don't hide. Because then when we hide away in fear, you and I both know fear is contagious, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we cower back in fear and we ignore our realities, they don't go away. Right?
Actually, they get worse.
Right? So talk to us probably a little bit more from a leadership perspective. What would be your tips or tidbit to our employees listening, as it relates to, recognizing the most brutal facts of our current reality?
Well, in actuality, as you were talking, you actually went into that, right? And one of the big things is addressing the fear. And recognizing, what, I am fearful. I am having some anxieties. Literally sit in it. Sit in it. And I've been listening. It's probably from the Leading Through Crisis, but sit in it. And there was also, I was listening to an article webinar from the Arbinger Institute. And I think they had a similar concept. Stewarded, the guy was a former Navy SEAL. Talked about the mindset. Sit in it, become comfortable with that. But in doing that, you're able to say, okay, what's next? What do I want? You also have to have a place where you want to see yourself on the other side, because there's another side. So where do you want to get to? And then I think what's important for me, Leonie, and I say this because this is what I have to do, I look to the other side of where I want to be. I have an idea of where I want to be 10 years from now, right? But I then have to come back and sit in the seat where I'm right now and focus on what's right in front of me. So it's moment by moment, and when you're operating in crisis, sometimes you have to stay moment by moment in order to maintain your balance, the emotional balance of it. And so that's what I would say is like, yeah, go out, envision your future, but you need to come back and then just sort of plan it and then take it step by step. And step by step, one of the things, when you think about when I say planning it, from a project management standpoint, right? Every project manager knows you make a project plan. You put together your milestones, your tasks, and how long and the durations and all this thing. You put together this wonderful schedule. But every single project manager knows that something is going to go awry somewhere, and so you have to also have that mindset. It's a plan,
yes,
but it can't be so inflexible that you're not willing to sort of go off course and it's okay, we're off track, where it's sort of in the yellow, we're behind, so how do we catch up? And it's about strategizing. So it's the same thing you would do, strategizing with life. Okay, what's the next thing? But I would say the moment by moment living, and I'll leave you with this. I was talking to someone yesterday, and we were talking about my life over the last 3 years, and they said, you know what, this last 3 years, you've just been like up there. You've just not really sort of landed. And they said, well, I hope when COVID ends that you take some time to do some things. Or else I said, no, I'm not gonna wait. I said, because one thing I've learned about life, you don't put off enjoying life waiting for a good time. No, you have to I said, in the moment, I'm going to take the opportunity to go and drive up on a shoreline and look over at the ocean. Those simple things like that for me is important.
Absolutely. It goes back to mindset. And you know what, June, as you were sharing, I started thinking, Renew 22. Renew 22, right? And we've been talking about going through the transformation. We are in the transformation.
I think I'll drink my tea to that.
We're smacking in the middle of the transformation. It's real for us here at the County of Santa Barbara.
Right.
And I'm so excited that we get to talk to our CEO tomorrow to learn more about, some of the things that employees are probably not aware of. But I will also share another point here from the book. And when once we recognize the most brutal facts of our current reality, that's the first action. But the next is to never lose faith that we're going to prevail in the end. Now, I'm not asking you to be overly, optimistic, and I can be very optimistic as well, but it's a mindset, as you were saying, is I have my plans, I know where I'm going. So we have to stay steady with, I'm going to prevail in the end. The seas are getting rough, right? Because that's what we're going through now. We're really going through
right.
And the wind is just blowing to and fro. But I really want to encourage our employees listening to us right now is stay in the ship. If you can't swim, I'm very Jamaican. If you don't know, if you haven't picked up on the accent as yet, I was born on the beautiful island of Jamaica, and I don't swim. I don't swim. I don't swim. Okay. And so I've learned that I need to be very mindful of my reality before I jump ship. And while we're going through this transition or this transformation, there's so many unknowns, right? And I'm really calling upon our employees to live our organization's mission or values and remember where we're going. We are public servants, right? We're here to serve the greater good of our public. We're here to provide exceptional public service to our communities. And how we get to do that, I also want to kind of put this in there to remind our employees that HR provides resources that is on our website. Check out the County of Santa Barbara HR's website. If you're looking for resources, there are 5 divisions within HR, and we do have some information under the diversity and inclusion, work that we're doing in HR. But check out the resources that's available to you. Before you jump, assess what's available to you so you can help to make a well-informed decision, right? Because sometimes I think also as we're going through this, and as I was listening to Scott, I thought to myself, I remember driving from Santa Maria when I was volunteering at the shelter, and I saw the public works crew on the side of the highway. And I just got the chills. I'm like, gosh, they're out there making sure that the lights were, operating correctly, making sure that we weren't, like the roads were okay for us to drive on. And my hats were just off to our county employees as we continue to serve, but don't do it alone. Know that we do provide resources to all of our county employees should you need to refuel so you can continue providing the services that we do to our communities.
Awesome. And thank you for sharing the information in terms of the resources, because there is a wealth of information. So yeah, I ditto that in terms of, getting on the internet and seeing what's available to you as a county employee. So as we get ready to sort of wrap up this great session, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and I hope you did as well. And you're right, I learned a lot in terms of what Scott's team does, just public works overall. And I forgot about the wastewater. And you think about it, I'm like, yes, that's very important. So what I want to say is just, thank everyone for sort of tuning in to COSB 360 Conversations, a platform for county influencers. And I want you to know that even though we have Scott on and we'll have other leaders on, the thing about it is you can lead from any seat. It's not about a position. It's about the ability to influence and lead from any seat. So we welcome all of you to even, if you have something that you want the county to know, or if you made an impact, let us know so we can share that information on this podcast. And just thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks to Leonie for helping and just planting the seed for this whole and envisioning this podcast. And our HR team, I feel like this is the Academy Awards. So I want to thank my mom and my dad. I want to thank the HR director, and I want to thank the OTD division chief and all of HR, but most importantly, all the leaders and the employees, because you know what, this means nothing. It would mean nothing if it wasn't for them. So.
Absolutely. And June, before we go, do you have any announcements for leadership in terms of webinars or upcoming training from the employee engagement end? I'm so excited. We have our first virtual new employee welcome session on June 3rd. So excited. We
Awesome.
get to welcome our new hires. We haven't had one. We had one in April, but it was with the sheriff's department. And so it's really, really, really a great opportunity for us to continue this new employee welcome program. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Our CEO will be one of our guest speakers coming in to say hello to our new hires. This is the atmosphere where we share a lot of information as it relates to employee benefits, getting to know our employee relations team and how they support our employees, training and development opportunities, what it means to be a public servant, what does it mean to be a disaster service worker. And so we're going to cover a plethora of topics during the 3-hour segment. So I'm inviting all of our new hires to check us out in June. We'll have a session in July and August as well, virtual sessions. And then the second piece, because this new employee welcome program is a year-long program with 3 touch points. And so I'm so excited that we get to also celebrate our new hires who've been with the county for 1 year.
Oh, yeah, that's a milestone. It's always good.
So that session will be held on June 10th. And it will also be a virtual session. Our CEO will be there. So guys, let's come with our balloons. And I'm gonna have, you can have lunch during the session. I'm gonna have all kinds of funny stuff to just celebrate with you this 1-year journey here at the county, and also get to learn from our new hires what's working well, how can we improve the experience for them, and what are some opportunities in terms of training that they're looking for, to help them to develop and grow as they navigate their careers here at the County of Santa Barbara. So those are the 2 plugs I just wanted to slip in there. So do you have anything you'd like to share with our
And I'm going to say real quick, the first thing that comes to my mind is that becoming a supervisor. We're going to be doing that starting in June, and we're going to do that virtually. We're going to test it out, so I'm excited about that. Bringing that on, we were supposed to start that in March, and we had to pivot. And so now we're looking at it in June, and we have right now, I think, 20 plus individuals who are registered for the program. So I'm excited about that. And as it relates to later on in the fall, we're looking at other programs as it relates to the supervisor boot camp, management development. And I'm also thinking, not knowing what this environment is going to be like, in terms of how we move into next year, and what are the things that we need to offer for the spring, and how do we do it, the blended mode, and what's the best ways of doing that. So I think, it's a challenging time, but it is indeed an exciting time. And
it really is.
Yeah, and we've also gotten feedback from participants who participating in Leading Through Crisis that they really like that program, and they want to see more leadership development programs. And so I'm excited looking at what we can do to bring that to the county employees at large. So
awesome, and I hope, awesome, June. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope during our next one of our next sessions, you talk about the learning journey that you're creating, because I think it's exciting that you're creating an actual learning journey for our employees. And I love what you said earlier on about, you can lead from any seat. I'm like, if I was, I love that. I thought that sounds so inclusive.
Really, yeah, actually, you know what? It's the book. It's one of the books that was recommended out of the PEAK program, Leading from Any Seat. But it's true. This is, a lot of people think that leadership is about the position. Yes, position has a certain responsibility, but influence comes in all shapes and sizes and comes from anywhere,
Absolutely.
And so anyone can, and that's why this platform is important, because notice what we said, it's a platform for county influencers, and that's anyone in the county who is making a difference. And so, yeah, definitely.
Yes. Yay! Awesome! Wonderful! All
right.
You know what, June? Thank you so much for we're just great co-hosts together. It's a great experience. I am excited about what the potential of this podcast will do for us as an organization. I am grateful that, we have so much support from the very top from the CEO all the way down. And so I just want to, it's just a great honor that at this time in history that we're doing this. And I'm just so excited also to hear from our employees, like their own stories. I'm going to let you in on a little secret, June. There's someone in our county that's actually engaged in making face masks for our essential worker. Wow, I can't wait to hear about that experience, right? I'm just so thrilled. I mean, there are people who are coming up with creative, innovative ideas about how to maximize the use of technology. Talk about the Renew 22 principles of revision in our organization, rebalancing our resources, redesign the way we do our work, right? How we respond to our residents with the highest level of customer service. And then the big piece for you and I come in, retention. How do we build the next generation of leaders here at the county, and do it in such a way that is truly representative of legacy, right? Of legacy, of innovation, of transformation. So I'm just so excited about the
Like I
guests
said,
that we have on this
it's an
program.
exciting time. It's a challenging. Let's not negate the reality. The reality is it's a challenging time,
That's a
but
fact.
it's also an exciting time.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing right now is we're embracing the excitement and the opportunities that's right in front of us. And I hope every employee across the county, no matter where you are, takes the time to do that. No matter, and even sometimes, it doesn't have to be big leaps.
Mhm.
It's the incremental things that really make a difference. Incremental changes have a huge impact.
Mhm.
So with that, though, I want to say, stay tuned. We have our next guest who's going to be coming up, and that is going to be Wendy Sims Moten, who's the First Five executive director, and she's going to come in and talk to us and share her perspective on navigating crisis as well. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Leonie. This was really great, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Okay, bye everyone. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the COSB 360 Conversations podcast, the platform for county influencers. We welcome your thoughts and feedback. So if you have any questions for today's guest, or if you have any recommendation for future topics and guests, please contact our co-host. We consider all county employees to be influencers. So if you're working on an initiative or a program that has a positive impact in our county, please contact us with your idea.